When I pull back the curtains in my living room here in Tampa, Florida, my chest tightens the same way it does every morning. I don't even want to look outside, but I force myself to. I make myself witness the consequences of the choices that dismantled the life I once had. Because right across the cul-de-sac, close enough that I can see which lights he turns on first in the morning, lives my ex-husband. Before I continue, if you're watching this on Cheating Secrets channel, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it so more people can learn from real stories like this. And if you've ever made a mistake that changed everything, just leave a comment with a heart emoji. Let's help new stories come to light. Across the street, my ex-husband, Ethan, is in the backyard right now. There's a pool at his place, a big one, with pale blue tiles we once said we'd install when we finally had the money. We never installed it. Instead, Ethan bought that house after everything fell apart. I guess it was his way of staying close to the boys and still staying far away from me. We don't have a formal custody schedule. That's the strange thing. Technically, our sons live with me. They sleep here. They eat here. Their clothes are here. Their backpacks, their messy shoes, their not-so-clean laundry, it's all in my house. But emotionally, spiritually, socially, they've built another life just across the street. They drift between the two houses like they used to when we were a family. Right now, they're in the pool with their friends, acting like two teenage boys who think the whole world is watching their goofy dives, when in reality, it's only me staring through these curtains. Grayson is 14 now, tall, loud, always showing off. And Micah, who's 13 but carries himself like the older brother, is methodical, careful, observant. I see them both splashing around, trying to impress the girls from next door. The giggling, the shrieking, it all floats upward like some cruel reminder of what innocence used to sound like. And then I see her. That woman. That fitness instructor Ethan hired last year. She's somewhere in her mid-40s, but she looks like she crawled straight out of a fitness magazine. Maybe dental floss is thicker. And I shouldn't care. I shouldn't care at all. But I do. God, I do. Am I exaggerating? Maybe. Am I jealous? Yes. Absolutely. But she's not the real issue. My name is Lena Morrison, and I'm the woman who blew up her 18-year marriage in one impulsive, reckless, terrifyingly thrilling moment. I became an adulteress, a word I never imagined would apply to me, a word that still tastes like rust and shame in my mouth. Ethan and I were married for 18 years, but our love story actually started right here in Tampa. We met at a coffee shop downtown, the kind with creaky wooden floors and indie music seeping from old speakers. I was 22, working as a junior editor at a local publishing house. Ethan was a military K-9 specialist on leave, home for only 3 weeks. We always said we fell in love fast because we had to. His schedule didn't leave room for slow romance. We got married before I truly understood what deployment meant, before I understood the loneliness that creeps into a house when your husband is gone for 9 months straight, before I understood how resentment grows in silence. He served for 4 years while I built my career. Then we had our boys, 2 little miracles born just 14 months apart. When Ethan left the military and started working for a private security firm, I felt like life was finally settling into something predictable. We had stability. We had income. We had rhythm. We had love. Or at least I think we did. Back then, I worked from home during my pregnancies. Later, when the boys started school, I returned to the office full-time. And that's when everything began to shift. I didn't notice the cracks forming at first, but they were there. Tiny hairline fractures spreading across the foundation of our marriage. At first, it was little things. Ethan forgetting to say thank you when I made dinner. Me feeling annoyed when he left dishes in the sink. Him zoning out after work. Me taking his silence personally. Him assuming I was okay. Me assuming he should know I wasn't.
We both thought the other person should simply understand. But marriages don't collapse overnight. They erode, slowly, quietly, secretly. The truth is, I stopped communicating. Instead of telling Ethan how lonely I felt or how exhausted I was, I buried myself deeper into my work at the publishing house. And at work, I felt seen, appreciated, valued, especially by Mark, my editor-in-chief. Mark was charming in ways that seemed harmless at first. Compliments here, jokes there. He noticed everything. New hairstyle? He commented. A new dress? He noticed. A tough day? He listened.
Ethan, meanwhile, was busy building his own private security business. He worked long hours, night shifts, emergency calls, client installations. Meanwhile, I was reviewing manuscripts and attending meetings with authors who desperately needed validation. My attention shifted. My priorities shifted. And worst of all, my attitude shifted. I began keeping score in my marriage. Who cooked more? Who cleaned more? Who cared more? Who tried more? The resentment poisoned everything it touched. I began dressing differently. Tight skirts, blouses with lower cuts, clothes I once said were too much. But they weren't too much for the office. They weren't too much for Mark. And his attention? God, it was intoxicating. Looking back now, I know exactly when the line blurred, and I know exactly when I crossed it. It was a Thursday night, a deadline night, a manuscript emergency, one of those nights where we stayed late because the world depended on our edits. Mark and I had been working for hours when he looked at me in that soft, almost vulnerable way and said, "I'm afraid I ruined your plans for dinner at home." I laughed. "Don't worry, Ethan always orders pizza on Thursdays. He and the boys watch game night on ESPN. Mark smiled, one of those slow, dangerous smiles. "If I was your wife, I'd never let you out of my sight." Something inside me jolted. Excitement, flattery, validation, all the things I hadn't felt at home in so long. I should have walked away. I didn't. I should have stopped the conversation. I didn't. I should have turned off whatever fantasy had begun forming in my mind. But I didn't. And that night, that sentence, those 6 careless words, changed everything. Mark's words lingered in the air that night like smoke, thick, dangerous, impossible to ignore. I tried to pretend I didn't feel the warmth rising in my cheeks or the sudden flutter in my stomach that had no business being there. I told myself it was harmless. Just a comment. Just a compliment. Just nothing. But I knew it wasn't nothing. We wrapped up our edits around 9:15 p.m. and stepped outside into the warm Tampa night. The humidity clung to my skin, making every breath feel heavy. Mark suggested dinner. Something quick, just to make up for keeping you here so late. I said yes before my brain caught up with my mouth. We went to a small seafood place just a few blocks from the office. It was dimly lit, cozy, the kind of place that made you feel hidden from your real life. We ordered wine. Too much wine. We talked about our marriages, our kids, our disappointments. We laughed louder than we should have. We let too much emotion slip through the cracks. It felt like a first date, and I treated it like one. When Mark walked me to my car, I should have thanked him for dinner and gone home. But instead, I kissed him. No planning, no hesitation. Just lips meeting lips in a reckless, breathless moment that lasted far too long to be innocent.
The second our mouths separated, reality came crashing down around me. What did I just do? How did I let this happen? What was I thinking? But the truth was, I'd stopped thinking long before that kiss. On the drive home, my entire body buzzed with adrenaline, fear, excitement, self-loathing, desire, all tangled together in a way that made me feel both alive and sick. I pulled into the driveway and forced myself to breathe. The house was dark except for the glow of the big TV in the den. "I'm home," I called out. I heard the announcers shouting through the TV speakers and Ethan yelling back something about extra pizza in the kitchen. He didn't even look away from the screen. Neither did the boys. I lied. "Oh, I grabbed something earlier." I don't know why I said that. It was such a small lie, but small lies are always the first step down the slope. That night, I went to bed early. I was exhausted, not from work, but from the guilt clawing at my insides. Not 10 minutes later, Ethan practically dove onto the mattress beside me. "Babe," he whispered, "the Bulls won tonight. What do you say we celebrate?" "Ethan, seriously," I snapped. "I have work tomorrow. Just leave me alone." He froze. I felt him staring at me through the dark, confused, hurt, unsure. Then he left the bed without saying a word. I heard the soft click of the guest room door a few minutes later. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my chest burning with guilt, but not enough guilt to make me go after him. Not enough guilt to tell him the truth. Not enough guilt to stop what would happen next. The next day, I woke up late. My stomach twisted when I didn't see Ethan in the bedroom. He'd slept in the guest room. His way of giving me space. His way of trying not to make me uncomfortable. And look how I repaid him. The boys were already dressed and eating cereal at the kitchen table. "Dad made us breakfast," Micah said. "Yeah," Grayson added. "He said you were tired." I swallowed hard. Tired wasn't the word. After they left for the bus, I stared at my reflection in the microwave door. My eyes were puffy, my makeup smudged, my face pale. I told myself it was a one-time mistake, a blip, a moment of weakness. I chose an old conservative blouse and a loose skirt, clothes I used to wear before the compliments, before the attention, before the temptation. I tried to make myself look plain, invisible, undeserving of Mark's gaze. But wanting to hide my guilt did nothing to erase it. I avoided Mark until the meeting with the senior editor at 11 a.m. We presented the manuscript. It went well. Too well. The senior editor invited us to lunch, but Mark declined, saying, "We've got a lot to wrap up today." He suggested lunch at the Golden Mango Hotel, a high-end place in downtown Tampa. I knew what kind of hotel it was. Everyone did. It was where executives took guests they wanted to impress, or sometimes hide. We sat in the corner booth, silent for the first few minutes. I kept fiddling with my napkin until he reached across the table and lightly touched my hand. "Lena," he said softly, "we shouldn't feel guilty about connecting with someone." My stomach nodded. That wasn't just a connection, Mark. "It could be," he whispered. "If you let it." I should have ended it there. I didn't. We ordered wine, breaking company policy, and drank more than we should have. When it was time to head back, Mark said, "We can't go back like this. They'll smell the wine on us." I nodded. He called the office. We were working remotely for the rest of the day. And that's when he said it. "So, what do you want to do with the rest of the afternoon?" I knew exactly what he meant. I knew exactly where this was going. I knew exactly how wrong it was. But the woman I was supposed to be, the mother, the wife, the loyal partner, floated outside of me, detached, watching, helpless.
And the woman sitting next to Mark, warm with wine and attention and longing, was someone else. A stranger wearing my skin. When Mark suggested getting a room upstairs, I didn't protest. I didn't pretend to misunderstand. I didn't ask him to stop. I just whispered, "Okay." The elevator ride felt like the longest and shortest moment of my life. By the time we reached the 10th floor, my heart felt like it was going to crack open from the pressure.
And yes, I did it. I crossed the line so far I couldn't even see where the boundary used to be. It was thrilling for all the wrong reasons. It was addictive in a way that felt poisonous even in the moment. And afterward, when my breathing calmed and reality returned, the shame hit me so hard I felt physically ill. Mark asked if we'd keep seeing each other. I told him no. I lied. I said, "This can never happen again." But even then, I wasn't sure if I meant it. When I stepped out of that hotel and felt the sun hit my face, it felt like judgment, like the world was glaring at me. Everyone must have known. Everyone must have seen. Everyone must have guessed. I rushed to my car. My hand shook so badly I could barely hold the keys. And then the tears came. The kind of tears that feel like they come from the deepest part of your soul. I sobbed until I couldn't breathe. I had betrayed my husband. I had betrayed my family. I had betrayed my own values, my own promises, my own vow. And for what? For mediocre sex? Cheap attention and a moment of excitement I convinced myself I deserved. When I finally pulled myself together enough to drive home, I walked inside and immediately threw myself into housework. Scrubbing, sweeping, wiping, folding, anything to drown out the truth. But guilt doesn't drown. It floats. It rises. It waits. And I knew I couldn't hide from Ethan forever.
I don't know how long I stood in the kitchen, wiping down a counter that was already spotless. Every few seconds, I'd hear the boys shouting across the street, the sound of water splashing, laughter spilling over the fence line like salt in an open wound. But the worst moment wasn't external, it was internal. Because the second I saw Ethan walk through our front door that afternoon, the guilt inside me cracked open like a dam. He didn't say anything at first. He didn't smile or frown. He didn't look angry or suspicious. He just looked tired. Bone-deep tired. The way someone looks when they've carried too much for too long. "Hey," he said quietly. And that one soft word, spoken so gently, shattered whatever was left of my self-control. The tears exploded out of me. I couldn't stop them. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even stand up straight. "Lena, what's wrong?" he said, grabbing my shoulders. "Did something happen to the boys? Did something happen to you? What's going on?" I tried to speak, but nothing came out except these ugly, strangled sobs. He pulled me closer, trying to calm me, and that made it worse. Because he was still being kind, still being supportive, still being my husband. "I'm the one in trouble," I finally choked out. Ethan's expression changed. Not anger, not suspicion, just concern. The kind you only have for someone you love deeply. "What happened?" he asked. "Did you lose your job? Were you hurt? Lena, just tell me. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out." But he couldn't fix this. Nobody could. I stepped back and blurted it out in one breath, like ripping a bandage off a wound that was still bleeding.
I slept with another man.
Everything in the room went still. The air, the walls, the space between us. Him. It was like watching someone's soul leave their body. His face emptied, his shoulders stiffened, the warmth in his eyes dimmed. Ethan wasn't a man who yelled or threw things. He processed pain quietly, internally, intensely. "You," he said, like the word itself couldn't find footing in his mouth. "I didn't mean to. I mean, it was only once. It will never happen again. I'm so sorry. I love you. I love only you. Please don't leave. Please forgive me. Please." He stepped back when I tried to touch him. "My promises," he said, "mean nothing to you anymore. And yours? They don't mean anything to me now either." His voice didn't rise, but it cut through me. Sharp, cold, final. I saw the familiar redness creep up his neck, a reaction he always had under extreme stress. Hives. A physiological betrayal of his emotions. "I need to get out of here," he said quietly. "If I stay, I don't trust myself." That terrified me. Because Ethan was trained. Because Ethan was capable. Because Ethan had spent years learning how to restrain dangerous people. And because Ethan loved me enough that my betrayal might have burned too hot to control. "Ethan, please don't leave." "Don't call me," he said. "Don't ask where I'm going. Just don't." He walked out. The door closed, and the silence he left behind was louder than any screaming could have been. I fed the boys dinner through tears I tried to hide. I told them Ethan had been called out to a late security job outside the city. They accepted it easily. Kids always believed the gentlest version of the story. They stayed up playing video games because there was no school in the morning. I stayed up playing mental war with myself. What if Ethan filed for divorce tomorrow? What if he never came home? What if he tried to hurt Mark? What about Mark's wife, his kids? What if this spiraled into something I couldn't control? By Saturday morning, Ethan still hadn't returned. By Sunday evening, nothing had changed. I kept lying to the boys. Dad's working overtime. Dad's helping a client out in Clearwater. Dad might stay the night again. Meanwhile, I was drowning. What I didn't know was that Ethan had spent those days connecting dots faster than I ever could have imagined. He knew my Thursday overtime was unusual. He knew who I worked closest with. He knew how affairs usually start. He'd installed enough security cameras for suspicious spouses to understand the patterns. On Monday morning, instead of coming home, he went to my office and asked reception to speak with Mark privately. Mark later told me Ethan walked in calm, controlled, almost polite. "I want to apologize," he said to him, "for my wife tempting you. I hope this won't affect her future here." Mark believed him, believed the soft tone, believed the apology. He didn't see the danger. He wasn't trained to. Ethan stood, reached for Mark's hand to shake it, and used that moment to pull him forward. In one smooth motion, he struck Mark in the throat with the heel of his hand, the kind of strike meant to disable someone quickly. Mark collapsed, gasping, grabbing his neck. Ethan walked around the desk, kicked him hard in the groin, then twice in the ribs, not enough to kill him, just enough to show him exactly how angry he was. Then Ethan crouched down beside him and said, "If you report me, I'll tell your wife everything. I'll play her the conversation I recorded today. And
Maybe after my wife divorces me and your wife divorces you, you two can be together as much as you want." Then he left, walked out, without running, without rushing, without hiding, because Ethan only did what he was prepared to face the consequences for. Mark was taken to the hospital. His wife was notified. Ethan was arrested at Mark's home, where he waited outside for the police to arrive.
He didn't resist. He didn't deny anything. He didn't beg for leniency. He simply accepted the consequences I had set into motion. I visited him in jail, offered to post bail. He refused. "It's time we both take care of ourselves," he said. "What about the boys?" I whispered. "You should have thought about that," he answered, "before you became an adulteress." That word pierced me deeper than the reality of the jail cell. He served 6 months of an 18-month sentence. Those months were brutal. The boys spent their time across the street with the neighbors, Caleb and Misty Harper, our best friends for years. They had kids the same age, kids who practically grew up in our house. When Caleb's company transferred him to North Carolina, their house was suddenly for sale. The boys were devastated. So was Ethan. What I didn't expect was what happened next. The for sale sign disappeared. Ethan had bought the house. That was when I understood his plan. He would never take the boys away from me legally. He'd never punish them for my mistake. But he would build a life where he could see them without seeing me, where he could love them without being tangled in my presence, where he could be a father without remembering he once was my husband. He filed for divorce without warning, served the papers at my office. No arguments, no long explanations, just the facts. Adultery, separation, custody, support. He wanted the record to reflect exactly what happened. He didn't want revenge. He wanted truth. We divorced quietly, formally, painfully. But then something unexpected happened. The boys still drifted between our houses. They still played, still laughed, still needed both of us. And slowly, very slowly, Ethan began allowing himself to exist in the same spaces as me, without shutting down. He agreed to occasional dinners, family-style dinners, the kind where the boys talked too much and ate too fast and made us forget the rubble we were standing in. Sometimes, for a fleeting second, it felt almost like the old life. Almost. I never dated again. Not because Ethan asked me not to. He never would. But because loving someone new felt impossible when I still felt responsible for breaking the only man who ever truly loved me. People told me I should move on. Others told Ethan he should forgive me. I told every one of them to keep their opinions to themselves. This was our mess. My mistake. His pain.
Our journey, not theirs. Now here I am, telling this story, not to be pitied, not to be comforted, not to be justified, but to keep someone else from making the same mistake I did. Because once you take that step, once you cross that line, you can never go back to the life you had before. You can rebuild pieces, but you'll never again be the same woman who stood on the safe side of the boundary. So if my story reaches even one person who's dancing near the edge of temptation, please hear me. Don't do it. Don't ruin your life for something that lasts 1 hour but destroys years of trust. And if you've listened all the way to the end, thank you for being here. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this story with someone who might need it, and comment below with your perspective or the lesson you took away from this confession. Your support helps more cheating secret stories come to light.